Hello everybody, Diana here from Clay to Canopy. You know, that show where I attempt to try and make just about everything from the ground up. Today's episode is, you guessed it, it's a baking episode. I'm going to show you how to take one basic cake recipe and make 3 completely different cakes. And I'm going to be making them miniature, so if it was something for an afternoon tea or a small dinner party, you'll be able to put out 3 desserts that look like you slaved all day trying to make different things. It will take only a small amount of effort more than it would take just to make that one base cake. I went online and I pulled a coffee cake recipe from King Arthur flour. I'm not working with King Arthur flour. I just picked a easy to find recipe and what I thought was a stable, internet website. I didn't want to pull from, small blogs or things like that because I was worried that possibly the link might go bad eventually. Most coffee cake recipes are pretty much the same. It is just a sour cream cake base, and I'm going to start with that, but I'm going to then be altering. Let's get started on that recipe. Everybody meet Scarlett. Yes, I know, very predictable, but Scarlett and I have been friends for about 3 years now. Don't know what I would do without Scarlett at this point because my wrist is so bad from all of the making. It really is helpful to have this mixer. I used to do everything by hand. Thankfully, I have Scarlett now in my life. And I'm going to use the basic cake paddle. You could mix this by hand, of course, or you could use a hand mixer. To start off this recipe, I am going to cream my butter and sugar together, which is always the case. According to that recipe, I'm using 8 tablespoons of butter, which is essentially half a cup of butter. This is unsalted butter. 1 cup of sugar. And basically, I'm going to actually cream together all of my wet ingredients first. So I'm going to throw in my 2 eggs. And the recipe calls for the vanilla to be put in with the topping ingredients, but I throw my vanilla into the total cake batter. So I'm going to go ahead and add my 1 teaspoon of vanilla now. And I am in love with this bourbon vanilla extract. This one I got from Trader Joe's, but it gave me the idea to start my own bourbon extract. And I just started some a couple days ago, so it takes 6 months to cure. But we'll see. Hopefully in 6 months from now, I'll have a decent vanilla extract. I'm going to start off pretty slow because that chunk of butter is pretty large. Okay, so had to run back inside to get more sour cream because I was a little bit short. The next step in the recipe is supposed to be where you mix up your flour and all your dry goods. So the flour, the baking soda, the baking powder, and the salt into one mixture and then slowly begin to add it to the batch. I don't have time for that. And you're supposed to alternate between the sour cream and the flour mixture. Instead of doing all of that craziness, I'm going to go ahead and put in my baking soda, baking powder, and salt, and then I will slowly add the flour in and alternate the remaining flour with the sour cream. But I'm not going to, go through that extra step of mixing up into a separate thing. I never found that it was really necessary for this type of a cake, so here we go. So let me check my ingredients. Okay, I want a half a teaspoon of salt. Half here. Oop. I got a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, and then I have 2 cups of flour that I'm going to be only putting in a little bit at a time. I'll start off with half. And let's get that going. Alright, now's about the time where I scrape against the side of the bowl and then use that as an opportunity to get the last of my ingredients in. Alright, now the next step is going to be to divide this batter into 3 different portions. So I'm going to go grab some bowls and get this divided, and then we're going to talk about adding those 3 different flavors. Okay, so I divided in my batches into what looks like about 3. I left 1 in Scarlett, and then I have 2 in here. And the two that are separated here, I'm not going to actually need the mixer for, but for the batch of the lemon ones, which is what I'm going to do first, I will need scarlet for. So I just harvested a medium-sized lemon from my tree, and I'm just going to add the zest of this one lemon. I think that should do it. And now I have some homemade lemon extract that I made about 4 months ago. I basically took a bunch of my lemon peel and soaked it in some vodka and let it stew. Now I have a homemade lemon extract, and I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of that into my batch here. And you know what? Let's make it 1/2 teaspoon. Nice and lemony. While that's mixing up on low, I'm going to go ahead and flour my molds. These silicone molds, I actually found these guys at the 99-cent store. I love working with these types of molds. It gives me so many options, makes it look like you've done these incredible little confections, and it's very simple because the mold does all the work for you. They are silicone and are not supposed to stick, but I found that flouring them definitely does help. You certainly could double this batch and make double the volume, and you're just making that one batter. And for sure, both doubling the batch would totally fit in this 5-quart mixer. It's always a hard part, getting it off. A clip here that makes it a little bit impossible. I have the tendency to way overfill things, but I'm going to really be cautious not to do that with these. I did not measure my 3 batches, by the way. Don't remember if I mentioned that earlier. I just kind of eyeballed what looked like dividing it into 3. So much for not overfilling them. Alright, I am going to go bring these into the oven, but before I do that, I'm going to clean up these edges of the silicone. I'm not going to throw all 3 different types of cakes in the oven at once because the sizes of my molds vary slightly, and I might have some issues with as far as the bake time goes. If you're looking at the King Arthur recipe, it says to bake for 30 to 40 minutes, but obviously that's for a large cake, and since these are all going into miniature pans, the bake time is going to be a lot quicker. And also it says to set the oven to 350. Personally, whenever I am baking cakes, I prefer to do my cakes at 325, just a little bit lower, and then a couple minutes longer. I anticipate them to be between 18 to 20 minutes or so. Okay, so my batch of lemon are in the oven. I did want to just point out that the reason why I went with the 1/2 teaspoon of the lemon extract, because my homemade lemon extract is not nearly as strong as a store-bought version, because I've only let it set up for 4 months. I'm sure if I let it go a little longer, it would probably be much stronger. But also it's basically completely natural. It's not set up in a press or anything like that, so it's a little bit more of a milder, and actually it's quite floral flavoring. Obviously I'm not expecting you to have your own homemade lemon extract. If you do, awesome. But if you don't, then I would probably only go with 1/4 teaspoon if it is a store-bought brand. Okay, I am in love with these molds. They are little mini houses. I found these on the internet. I fell in love with them, and I've only baked in them once to make some lemon cakes, but these guys today are going to become my strawberry cake, and I'm going to start by dusting this as well because it is silicone. Anyone who knows me and knows my artwork knows how much I love little mini houses. Alright, set that aside, and let's go with this. I have here just some homemade strawberry jam. You can use regular strawberry jam. Here's some strawberries from out in the garden. I think I'm going to hang on to these and use them to, no, you know what? I'm going to chop up some of these and actually put them whole into the batch. So I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of this jam. Any kind of flavored jam will work. And then to add a little bit of texture to my cake, I'm going to slice my fresh strawberries. It's always nice having a cake and biting into it and getting a chunk of fresh fruit. I'm not going to go too crazy in blending. I kind of want a swirling action happening. So I'm just going to give it a small mix and then go ahead and fill my cake pan. The strawberry smells so awesome. I think that'll be all right. Those will rise. Get that batch into the oven next, and then we'll move on to the traditional coffee cake batch. The very last batch is going to be your traditional coffee cake with cinnamon and nuts. And because I'm doing a traditional batch, I will be using my little mini springform pans, which I absolutely adore. Unlike the silicone, the springform pans need to be sprayed with a little bit of cooking spray before you flour them. I'm just going to do 2 for now because I'm not sure how far that batter is going to go. We'll see what happens. I've done this where I've divided this in 2 before, but I've never done it where I've divided into 3 different flavors, so I'm kind of guessing at how many molds I'm going to be able to fill here, so yeah, I think 2 is a good idea. So I'm only putting a small amount on the bottom, basically half the batter amount. Just want enough to coat the bottom there. And then I'm going to take some walnuts and chop some walnuts, probably, let's see, that's about 1/4 cup of walnuts. Normally I stick these in a bag and use my kitchen mallet to pound away, but I'm actually going to use that bag to toss these nuts in some cinnamon and sugar. You don't have to use walnuts, you can use pecans. I know some people have food sensitivities. Okay, I'm gonna put these nuts in my bag. Now I'm gonna add a teaspoon of cinnamon and a couple teaspoons of sugar. Now let's make it a tablespoon. I'm gonna seal up the bag, but I'm gonna leave a little bit of air so that I have some room to shake. Now I'm going to sprinkle 1/4 of the mixture on each. Now one of them I'm going to actually put chocolate chips in. This is like a thing that my mom does on her coffee cakes. And I used to come home from school and there'd be a coffee cake with chocolate chips inside of it waiting for me every afternoon. However, my housemate does not like the chocolate in them, so this is a perfect opportunity where you can kind of customize. So one of them I'm going to put chocolate chips in, and the other one I am not going to put chocolate in. Now I'm going to divide the remaining batter. By the way, yes, these are my countertops that I do all kinds of crazy building on. I have completely sanitized this shop before I switched to doing cooking, so you don't have to be freaked out. And then I'm just going to top them with the rest of that mixture. Okay, and these are ready to go in the oven once the strawberry houses are done. Alright you guys, they are done. I've come armed with my homemade Arnold Palmer and a fork, and I am ready to do this. Because I do not trust a chef who does not eat their own food. So, here we go. Strawberry first. That is super potent. Ooh, yeah. You can really taste those homemade preserves. Alright, and for the lemon. It's very light. This could totally work for a good breakfast. Afternoon tea, which is what I'm having right now. There's nothing like homegrown, organic fruit of your own being in your baked goods or in whatever you're cooking. That is awesome. Cleanse my palate a little bit, sort of. Get ready for that chocolate. Alright. Probably not as good as my mama's, but this one's still hot. Just took it out. That is taste of home. Okay, you guys, so really quick, The strawberry batch took 35 minutes, the lemon batch took 25, and the regular standard coffee cake took about 38 minutes or so about 40 minutes. That's basically it. 3 cakes, 1 batter. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already, and hope to see you soon. I just keep baking. The last thing I need is to be eating more sweets, but I just can't help myself. I'll go for a walk later. Walk off the sweets. I need to be walking till next year and walk off these sweets.